Hello everyone. Today we're going to be taking a look at this engine. It's a very old, the paint's chipped. It's probably from the 70s or the 80s. Either way, it's an old Sioux line locomotive. It has the same type of drive as a lot of Tyco engines, so I think it was made by Tyco. One interesting feature is, I don't know if you can see, but while the shell is die-cast, the chassis is all plastic. I do know it has a couple of problems. It has a cracked, you can see that. It has a cracked drive wheel, and it only has 2 wheels that pick up. So the wheels need to be very clean, as does the track. But let's take a look at it and see what we can do for it. Okay, so first we're just going to flip it over and start by taking it apart. I think the screw right here is probably what holds it together. So we'll loosen that up. There we go. So it turns out these little nubs back here face backwards, not forwards, as I was expecting. So that comes out, but it's still connected by a wire to somewhere in here. However, there's a little screw in there too, so we'll just take that out. Okay, there we go. One chassis. Okay, so next, we're just going to open up this bottom plate here and take a look at the likely plastic bearings and see what kind of condition they're in, if they need to be re-lubricated, if they're over-lubricated, and most importantly, we're going to check for hair, because hair is not a good thing inside your locomotive. It'll gum up all kinds of things and put stress on the motor. Yeah, not good. Well, don't know how well you can see. This is not the cleanest in the world. So we'll go ahead and clean this off and take out the wheels and clean those as well. Okay, so we're going to start by just taking a Q-tip, rubbing alcohol on one end, just a dry regular Q-tip on the other end. And we're just going to clean this up. Just kind of get rubbing alcohol on it. Yeah, I can feel that. This plate has a lot of really old dry grease on it. I have not been inside this locomotive before. This was given to me this last summer, and it didn't run the world's greatest, but you know, kind of is what it is. It's kind of a cool looking little engine, so hopefully we can get it fixed up. I also was pleasantly surprised when I opened up this locomotive. It appears to have brass wheel bearings. Not on the bottom here, but holding the actual weight of the locomotive. This is just kind of a retaining clip type system down here. So that was very nice to see, because that'll mean that the locomotive can run for a lot longer, just that it won't physically wear out. So as long as we take good care of it. Okay, well, this plate is looking much better. Yeah, much less greasy. We'll just do a quick look down here. I was pleasantly surprised to find no pet hair or carpet hair, you know, wherever you want to find these little fibers that'll clog this up. I was very pleasantly surprised not to find any of that in here. I was unpleasantly surprised, you could say, to learn that both brass drivers are cracked, and they're pretty tight fitting with about a 1/8 of an inch gap the way it is. So I don't think we're going to be able to force these drivers together, you know, solder them or whatever together. So I think our next best bet will be to simply fill in the gaps with a glue or an epoxy, and then sand it to fill to about the wheel size, so that it'll prevent it from jumping and hopping around on the track. Okay, next we're going to clean out this motor. From from what I can see, the commutator is not real clean. So we'll take out the brushes, clean those, clean the commutator. You can also see a little hair in there. We'll make sure all that gets taken out. So in order to take the motor out, we just need to open or unscrew this screw. These old motors are just held in place by one screw. So this will just come right on out, like that, and then motor should pop off the top. Maybe oh, this one has 2 screws. I misspoke. Here's our second screw. Okay, so now we have the motor out. I'm just going to pop these brushes off. They're just held on by this spring and this spring. All you need to do is push the springs back and up. Helps. Wow, these are not being terribly cooperative. Back, there we go. Got that one bent it a little, but it should be fine. Got one brush. And this, let's see if we can't do this one a little better. There we go, not much smoother. Okay, we got both brushes out. As you can see, this commutator is filthy. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a little bit of rubbing alcohol on our Q-tip and just wipe it all over this commutator. The good news is, excuse me, this is a 5-pole motor, so it should be quite well equipped to run well at slow speeds. Okay, we're just going to wipe that off. Yeah, we're making some improvements. It ain't pretty yet, but we're definitely making some improvements. I think because this commutator is in such poor shape, we're just going to go ahead and clean the brushes, reinstall those, and let them clean their own commutator, just by adding a little bit of rubbing alcohol and letting them spin and clean it off. Okay, so I got the brushes back on. I also lubricated the rear bearing, and I removed some hair and grease that was stuck in the motor. And I put a whole bunch of rubbing alcohol, I can actually put a little more, on the commutator here. And we are going to attempt to let the motor clean itself. So I've got some leads with power in them right here. And we're going to take those, and we're just going to carefully connect them to the motor. One goes directly on the motor, and the other goes to the electrically isolated contact, which is this one, I believe. It's one of these. Well, that's a full short. What's happening here? Put one here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it appears that this one is actually the electrically isolated contact, which I probably should have guessed. Either way, so let's try this again. Nada. What the heck? We can try applying these wires directly to the brushes, in which case we know they will work. Okay, there we go. You can see there's a heck of a lot of sparks in there. Okay, let's see if that did anything. It does appear a bit cleaner, but let's take it back apart and see if we've made any progress. Well, that appears to have made some progress, so now we're just going to go ahead and clean these little gaps in between the poles on the commutator. Just take a toothpick or anything that's not metal, go ahead and just scrape in there and get anything out. This will burn when power goes through it because it'll kind of be shorting between poles, which is not good. And it can make the motor much less efficient, which is not good either. So we're just going to clean these out gently, but not too gently. Okay, so now that those are cleaned out, we should run a little more efficiently. Also, we're just going to go ahead and give it another round of alcohol, followed by just a clean wipe here. And the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to use an eraser on it. as that's pretty good at cleaning up metal that's a little dirty. Okay, since our motor was a little too far gone, the commutator was, for just a little alcohol, we're just going to use an eraser. We're just going to rub it back and forth on here a few times. Oh yes, that's much shinier already, and you can see we're kind of getting a lot of gunk off on here. Yeah, so just going to go around, make sure we get all 5 poles cleaned up a little. The cleaner the better, because this corrosion that can build up on here, looks like I accidentally got some in one of those gaps. I'll need to go clean that. The corrosion, or just junk in general that accumulates on here, is not good for it and reduces its electrical efficiency, which in turn means it draws more power, and the motor produces more heat, which is not good for the motor, it's not good for your transformer. So it's just a good thing to keep these commutators clean. You can do it with this. They make fiberglass pencils that work quite well. I do not personally have one, but maybe I will acquire one, and then I can use that to help clean. But yeah, so looks like our commutator's a little cleaner here. We're just going to go ahead and clean out any of those gaps that we might have accidentally gotten a bit of eraser in. Okay, now let's reassemble this motor. So in terms of brushes, the brush with the wire attached goes on the side without the metal plating here. So you just thread it in there, and then you bring the spring over and set it in. There we go. It's good and tight. Now we'll do the same thing on this side. Bring the spring over, or rather put the brush in, then bring the spring over and in. And that spins real nicely. Now let's hook up some leads and see if we can't make this run, if this doesn't run a little better. Okay. Oh wow, that's much better. You can see it's running faster. Pretty sure it's drawing a lot less current. It's a little smelly, but that's to be expected from some of these old motors. So let's turn it down a little. But yeah, as you can see, it started much better than the last few times. So I'm going to call that a success. Let's get it put back together now. I just came across this and thought I'd show you guys. I don't know if you can see right there. There's a mound of crud. It's on both sides. That's grease and hair. Kind of gross. Could explain why this isn't working. I'm just going to carefully kind of scrape it off of this plastic here. Oh yeah, you can see that coming up. That's gross. Look at that. All of that just sitting here. Yeah, we're going to make sure not to use that much grease or get it stuck. Well everyone, after a lot of work, I've gotten these wheels somewhat fixed and back together. Decided to go with solder as opposed to epoxy so that there won't be an electrical dead spot. So as you can see, there's one. It won't run perfectly, I guarantee that, because I can't sand the solder quite straight, but it's close. And then there's the other. As you can see, there's still a little chunk out there. It bit a chunk out of the metal, but that shouldn't matter too much, and it was very hard to fill that with solder. So we have a solid electrical connection there, so I think it'll work. All that's left to do is clean the remainder of these wheels. So we'll just take our eraser and kind of rub it back and forth a few places. This is just a regular pencil cap eraser, as most of you can probably see. They do make the erasers, Bright Boy is one name for them, that have a little bit of grit inside of them that you can use for this. They'll just clean a little better. Additionally, that fiberglass brush I mentioned earlier will also work for this kind of job. So if you pick one of those up, it's kind of a multi-use. You can use it to clean commutators, wheels. Imagine you could use it to clean track, though that would be kind of interesting. It would take quite a while. Okay, so we have the wheels cleaned up. Now let's start reassembly. So we're going to start by taking the wheels and the chassis, which is right here, and we're just going to put a tiny bit of oil in each of these bearings right here. I cleaned out the oil that was in there, and it was old and solid, and Should make it run much better. Just a tad will be fine. Okay, now that we've got that in, I will just carefully, oh boy, this will be fun. Take these, thread the pistons around so they're on top, like so. And then here's where the contortionist part starts. Oh, do I have this backwards? Yeah, I do. Pardon me, 1 second. Okay, so it turns out it's supposed to be more like this. So we will, again, follow the same kind of procedure. There's still oil, obviously, down here. But we will rotate these wheels backwards, thread these pistons onto the chassis. Oops, it's backwards as well. There we go, thread the pistons onto the chassis. Okay, we'll just kind of bed the pistons down where they fit, which is right up front here. And then we will move these into position on the bottom here. And just kind of rotate them until they get into position. We appear to be really tight. I think that has to do with the pistons. Either way. So, that's bedded down now. They're close to bedded down at the very least. Okay, additionally, you want to just make sure that the back of this clip right here is on the little clip down there. So if you have to lift up the pistons, that's no big deal. The other one's already bedded in. There we go. Okay, so the pistons are completely bedded in. I did bend the little traverse rails a little on accident, so that could cause a little sticking and binding for us. But other than that, we appear to be in good shape. Okay, next we're going to attach this little bottom plate here. This just fits on like so, and is held on by 2 little screws. Just screw these in. Shouldn't take much time. Screw them in. Okay, there we go. Next we're going to put the motor in. Motor goes in like so. The motor takes 2 screws. One in the back here, and one here. Just get it seated up here on top as best you can. And then grab 2 motor screws. These are somewhat hard to get seated on the motor, just because it is not just a hole, but rather a slot to allow you more maneuverability if you want, which is, slightly annoying. Okay, so I went ahead and got the motor put back on. All we have to do now is attach this wire to the inside of the shell and lubricate the gear here. So we'll start by lubricating the gear. In order to do that, we're going to do a mix anywhere from 50-50 to 25-75 grease and oil. So here I have a little bit of grease. That is a real hair. Good thing I got that out. We'll just smear this all over the worm gear here. This just helps reduce wear and tear on the parts in here and helps it run quieter. So we got the grease. Then we'll just add a little oil on top. You don't need to do a ton, but it's a good idea to make sure that this is well lubricated because there is a lot of friction here. Okay, so now that we have that on there, I'm just going to turn this a little bit, get it worked in a tad. Okay, now that we've done that, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to take this wire and attach it to the inside of the shell here. This is a little screw that holds it in. So we're just going to put the screw in there. Yeah, I'm going to grab the screwdriver. Now we're just going to try and real gently. Yeah, that didn't work. I was going to say real gently guide it in. I'm just going to take this and... oh, come on. There we go. There. Okay, so that's in there. Just tighten it down a little. There we go. So that's attached. Now we can just maneuver this on top. Make sure that the wire stays in there. These hooks on the back of the locomotive here, these things will hook onto the space plate. Push it forward, and then you just take the long screw. I'll stick it in right there, and we will screw it in. I do not have the proper size screwdriver. One size bigger, which I have. I just don't know where I put it. Would work better. Well, there we go, folks. I got the switcher back together. I'll rig up a little test rack and we'll see how it works. Well, everyone, unfortunately I had to make a few modifications. While I was soldering the wheels, I distorted the rod system and just couldn't get it to work. Additionally, I think this body here, along with some of the metal parts on the drive system, is made out of zinc. That's my best guess, and zinc rot has obviously set in on some of these parts. I'll show you what all I took off. Here are some of them. This little piece right here, sorry, can't see that very well. This little piece broke into two, just crumbled. So my best guess is that's zinc and zinc rot. But nonetheless, got the engine back together. It does look a little funny without rods, but I left the pistons on. So let's see how it runs. Again, remembering that this only has one pickup wheel, so running is quite a step in the right direction. Okay, I'm going to give it a little power. Alright. So it does appear to have a couple dirty spots on its wheels. However, let's see if it can crawl, because I have a suspicion that it may be able to. Oh, would you look at that? Now that's not half bad for someone with somewhat dirty wheels. That's not bad at all. And we do have some speed too. So overall, not bad. We made a pretty much non-runner into a runner. Might even be able to use it. It really does have that weakness of just one pickup wheel for each side, which holds it back. But other than that, it seems to be quite a solid little engine. With that, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.